Hey, welcome to the new episode of Next Creators. Today we have Rogan X. Thank you for coming.
Hi, Sasha. So happy to be here.
Thanks a lot. So maybe we can start with your background. Where did you grow up?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say I grew up on Earth. Uh, I I was born in Edmonton, Alberta. I very quickly moved away and went traveling around the world with my parents. We for 2.5 years we traveled all over Europe, Asia, India. I haven't been everywhere. I'll say that, but I have been a great many places. But as far as where I grew up, after that trip, after coming back to Canada, uh, lived in Ontario for a little while in Toronto, and then moved out to the East Coast to the province of New Brunswick. There's this little town there, well, city actually. I shouldn't say town. It's actually a city. The city of Moncton. It's a fun little place. Lots of great people there. Great culture, Acadian culture. It's French. It's like a mix of French and it comes from like the Creole and like Louisiana. There was this whole story that I won't get into, but it's a really interesting place to have grown up. It was a lot of formative time there for me, and then kind of into adulthood, I said, "Nah, this place isn't really for me long term. I need to strike out." So I came back to Alberta. Now I live in Calgary, which is about a 3-hour drive away from Edmonton.
Got it. And so what did you study? What did you focus on once you started working in a professional world as well?
I've worn many, many hats. I've stayed out of tech until recently, but I've always been involved in it in some form or another. There's been a good amount of time that I've spent in, I would say, logistics. I'm also a certified journeyman welder. I've had the wonderful opportunity actually to go weld internationally and represent Canada and Canadian welding standards and safety standards in Ireland. I lived in Ireland for a few years. This some OM on my wall. um, I've predominantly, as far as studied, I would say I've studied life. I'm a student of life. Life and art do tend to imitate one another, but there's not a day goes by that I'm not trying to learn something about something. Uh, my brain often feels like pudding because I'm constantly putting things into my brain pan and just trying to fry it up into a good, wholesome stew that I can then serve up to people. I love to help people, and I mean we're going to be talking about that later. But the study, so yeah. So I'll say this, man. I dropped out of high school, and becoming a welder is not terrifically hard. Like it does not require an intense amount of study. It does require hand-eye coordination, manual dexterity, critical thinking, math skills, but it's not really on the same par, and especially in people's minds with higher education and blue collar, white collar, values and what have you. That has played a part in my own learning. I don't come from any kind of educational or professional background, but these are things that you can pick up by participating in various things. So, like over the years, being on various communities, forums, chat programs, all the way back to bulletin boards in the 1990s and IRC, ICQ. I could throw out acronyms all day, but that's boring. But yeah, I've been around for a while. I'm almost 40. I won't put an exact pin on it, but my birthday is in March.
Yeah, and I remember from our previous conversation you mentioned that you were growing up around computers.
Yeah, I've actually enjoyed a lot of time with technology. I've been lucky in that regard. Very privileged, I would say. And it started largely because my father was a computer salesman. I had early access, one could say. So I learned to type before I could read or write, in essence. And so I've been using technology and computers in various forms ever since, coming up all the way from, actually, if I think back about it, the 286 architecture was the first computer that I actually got to know and use on a regular basis. And then 386, 486, Pentiums came out, and then we've just kind of accelerated the pace. Moore's law has, been showing its showing its face lately, but there's definitely always been technology in my life. I'm very comfortable with it. I'm fluent in many different operating systems, hardware, software. I've used Photoshop fairly extensively since Photoshop became Photoshop. But as far as like actually ever selling art or anything of the sort, that didn't come along until very recently in my life.
And so how did you make transition to the digital? What was the motivation behind it? And also how did you make this transition?
Do you mean that in the sense of most of my life being digital? Like in the sense that everyone's currently is? Or I'm not quite sure what you're getting at.
More like changing the role from being welder to becoming an artist.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So from from blue collar to tech. So I, after coming back from Ireland to Canada, I got back into the logistics business. It wasn't meant to last, but it was a good kind of, crash landing coming back from living internationally for a while. And I was just very happy to have employment right away. That was very like comforting in a way, but it was definitely not what I'm here for and not what I need to be doing long term. And at some point I realized that, and I said to myself, look, technology is, and it's always going to be, the future, in a sense that it's where we take it. It's what we do with it. So I personally, I've had my hands on various computers over the years. Like I've bought, sold, torn them apart, put them together. But I'm not selling racks of servers to large enterprise to then make large amounts of money churning over people's personal information. So not to put too fine a point on it. And ladies and gentlemen, if you get to know me at all, you will come to understand I am not a fan of big business or corporations. However, I understand that economies of scale are a thing and that many hands make light work. So the more people we get involved in the Web3 space, the more people that come to the metaverse, the more people that are interested in crypto, the more people that are interested in using these things together to form a better future, it's only going to benefit more people. So please come on in. The water's fine. And I will explain to you why and how. So please ask me more.
That'd be awesome. So let's start with actually Web3. How did you discover Web3? When was it?
Oh, this is great. So 2020, I'd actually just unfortunately lost my employment. And so I was kind of adrift for a little period there. And then in about May of 2020, I was just on Twitter because you're bored and you're on, looking for something to fill your day with a little bit. You're told to stay at home because there's a pandemic on. So I hop on Twitter and I see there's this advertisement for a poster contest, and the reward or the prize is half of an ether. So you can imagine what I did next. I won the poster contest. I got the half an ether. I got myself an ENS name, and I started to learn, seriously about Ethereum because I was aware of it since its creation, but I wasn't involved in it in any way. But despite false starts, if anyone out there has an idea, you will probably hit stumbling blocks. Do not be discouraged at all. You will stumble, but the community is here to help you. And that's the point of Web3 to me. My exposure came as a result of crypto art, and more specifically the platform made by NFT 42 crew, Nate Alex. It was called Infinity at the time. Now it's rebranded to Infinity Tokens. It's really cool. At the time, I'm looking at the whole stack and thinking like, wow, Arweave, IPFS, what all is this? And so I realized very quickly, this is not the kind of thing that is, you can be self-taught, but that's not always the best approach. And for me, having had the discipline to become a professional welder and do that for a decade, I just pivoted. I applied it. Sun's bright. I applied it to my life, and I took a methodical approach. I decided after doing some research to take a boot camp, essentially. I found this amazing company called ChainShot. I give them mad props because the people there are amazing. Dan and Cody are really great guys that do amazing work to get people uplifted into this space. And I took advantage of that. It did cost me money, but it was an absolute investment in myself. And, if I make this mental argument, I could have spent, that money to buy ether and then been richer today. No, the investment was in myself, and it paid off massively.
And what did you do next?
After the boot camp? A lot of stuff, but none of it really related to getting my hands dirty and directly building dApps or Web3 applications. I have a couple of ideas floating around in my own head, but just the way things are right now, I'm not really going to be able to bring them home just yet. Still going to take me a little time. A large part of that is because I'm still learning. There's so much to learn, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. But it is intense though. I think that the cadence I've set for myself is perhaps a little insane, to be perfectly honest. And I'm starting to realize that I've taken on a little bit more than I should in some ways. And I've had to curate my personal schedule pretty aggressively, unfortunately, on certain projects that I was getting involved in and just starting to ramp up into. And then now I'm actually working for a Web3 startup called Figment on their Learn team.
Interesting. So how do you balance art side of it and technology side of it?
They have to be the same thing, but it's not that simple. So a lot of people that I've encountered that have like traditional art backgrounds, they have a little more difficulty taking in the technology side of this. And not always. Like, there are definitely tech savvy artists out there. And when you get that perfect storm of talent and tech savvy and understanding of the deeper aspects of the platform that you're working with, people innovate, people come up with incredible things. And we've already seen it happen in the last year and a half. And I know that like, it's not like crypto art started when I showed up. I'm not trying to say that. There's my understanding of it is that it is fundamentally the blockchain technology that is, it's not propping anything up, but it enables different things than we've had before in technology. And so as I came to understand it, the Web3 interface between humans and the technology, it has to be where we control our own data, we control our own identities, and we control our own money. And when you have those three components together in the system, then yeah, you can start to make kind of more systemic level changes. And that's what I'm aiming for to get to. I know we're not there yet, but also my involvement is very rudimentary in many ways. I am not a Stanford researcher doing high-level paid research on blockchain technology and how to integrate it into society. I'm not a sociologist. I don't have any kind of educational background. Like I said, I dropped out of high school. But that story is actually very formative in how I come to be where I am. And this is interesting because you're going to ask me later, hey, Rogan, how does dropping out of high school help me get a good paying job in tech? And I will tell you now, it has nothing to do with anything other than privilege and access over time. Like, if anyone but me had the privilege and access that I've had over time, they could be doing what I'm doing now. They would understand things the way I do. And I'm not saying I have some, galaxy brain understanding of any of this. Like I say, I am still learning so many things, picking up new blockchains, picking up new programming languages. You have to be engaged in, people talk about passion a lot, but it doesn't take passion. Like, you can have passion and drive for something, never have the opportunity or access, and never get anywhere. And you can have no passion whatsoever, have all the access, and just rock it. And everyone, and I say this a lot, the Pareto comes out to play when money is involved. We all know that. That's no secret. But as far as getting money into the Web3 space, getting people into blockchains, entrepreneurs with ideas, with funding, with access and privilege, my stance, and feel free to disagree with me on this and tell me I'm crazy. Please try not to do it vocally on Twitter or on social media. But the onus is on us, the people with the access, the people with the privilege, to help uplift everyone else. And I mean everyone. I don't discriminate between political stances, religions, ethnic backgrounds, gender. I don't care. We are all human beings. That's a fundamental fact. We wake up every day on the same planet and we have to get along. And we don't, largely because people are worried about where their next meal is coming from or other interesting effects. So here we are at this inflection point in history where now we have this amazing technology that some people say is like the greatest thing since sliced bread, and other people say you're killing the planet. And I don't really know exactly where I fit into all of that, but I can tell you I do care about the environment. I do care about the planet. I care about my communities, the people around me. And I want people to come together more than to be fractured. When people are apart, bad things happen. We need cohesiveness in communities. And interestingly, from the technological side, we've had a good amount of that, like what I'm talking about, using privilege and access to, help provide opportunities for people who don't have them. So it's easy to talk a big game about stuff like that, okay? I do have a personal history of light philanthropy because I'm not rich, but I do give when and where I can. But I'm not going to bang on about, money I spend to help other people. Just know that is an important aspect of entering the Web3 space. I feel if you're not bringing the human element into it, if you're not trying to bring more humanity and more human power and capital into the blockchain and into this shared pool of resource and value, because essentially, as far as I'm concerned, we're all staring down the barrel of universal basic income right now, today, this very minute. But no one wants to acknowledge it. People want to get rich flipping Bitcoin and NFTs. But I'm not going to freak out about it. It's just kind of sad sometimes when you see the way that certain things are treated.
How do you think about the technologist's role in bringing those communities together?
Technology's role in bringing communities together. It enables, it helps define some parameters for, behavior interfacing. Like if I had to put a pin in it, bulletin boards back in the 1990s, where kind of the internet originated from in a lot of ways, that was, compared to what we use today, very rudimentary networking technology, but it was effective. It was really effective. I was able to get information from around the globe even then. But the internet has streamlined a lot of things. So in terms of where we're at now with it, because we've gone through some growing pains and we've come up to this point where, like a lot of the infrastructure exists and people keep paying the power bills for it. So that's good. So as long as we kind of keep maintaining what we have, then we can use it to connect and have community and kind of cohesion. But digital community and connectivity are not the same as in-person interaction. I don't think anyone is debating that point, but just in terms of how it fulfills us and the role that it plays in our lives, it's important, but we can't put all our eggs in one basket. And that's why I keep saying, like, it's about the human angle. Like, you as a person, as an individual, what values are you bringing to your work, no matter what you do? And I tend to think, like, for the aspirational aspect of work, like we don't just work for the sake of work, we want to accomplish something. When we set goals for ourselves and for other people, and we have expectations of the people around us, that can translate in a lot of different ways. But where do we fit into what we're doing? I guess an example would be, I have, despite being connected to so many people over the last year and a half, felt incredibly alone. And forgive me if I shed a tear, but it's been intense. And even just thinking about it can provoke this visceral emotional response. But that's not my whole day. I can wipe the tear away. I can carry on. But I'm also not endangered. No one's coming to crush me. But again, you guys can cut a whole bunch of that. It's maybe me getting a little heavy, but effectively, I think if we are to proceed with Web3, it should be with heart and soul, not just numbers, bits, and bytes, because electrons flowing around on silicone, as I like to say, it's great. It enables a lot of things, but we have to take it seriously as to where it fits into our lives, because technology can be immensely empowering, but it can also be very destructive, unfortunately. And we have to avoid those pitfalls by seeing them and then doing something about them instead of just, oh yeah, let it be someone else's problem, right? And from from the open source software perspective, there are a lot of people who have put an incredible amount of work into providing what we now take for granted. And the fact that I can jump into a terminal, drop in a few commands to install some packages, and within minutes be making an effective distributed application for a blockchain. That's immense. I couldn't do that 5 years ago. And getting to that point, for some people, it can take a different path. Some people are going to approach this from a higher education standpoint. They're going to come into it with degrees. They're going to come into it with a business mindset. They're going to come into it with this traditional capitalist, pump out the dollars and cents, go, growth, 100% of the time mentality. But that is not what we need in the blockchain. Or at least that's my belief. And I really hate speaking for other people or putting words in their mouth, but I think the kind of checking the pulse of a lot of what's going on in blockchain right now is people are optimistic. Oh yeah, it's a new all-time high for Ethereum. Yeah, that's dope. I've bought in, I'm invested, but not to the degree that a lot of people are. So I don't really have much to lose if it goes to zero either. And I think that that's an important consideration for people coming in, is where is your relative level of resource? Because just because you don't have Ethereum to send a transaction on mainnet doesn't mean that someone won't just give it to you. However, you can't take that for granted. You can't say, oh yeah, it's a handout. And there's actually a point that I would like to bring up as to something that I discovered today. One, the name "the future is .near" was not taken. I have it now. It's mine. But what were you all doing sleeping on that? and two, if I understand this correctly, anyone with an account on Ethereum that has 0.05, and this is stated on the Paras Faucet website that you use to do this process, can come link their Ethereum account and then get a near name for free. It gets fauceted. They don't have to pay for the creation. And you wind up with an account that has some near in it. Now, I'm not the smartest guy in the room, okay? But doesn't that mean that because the Rainbow Bridge is active, that suddenly there's this amazing opportunity to do cross-chain arbitrage? Or am I just dumb?
Oh yeah, you're right. There is, it's just people don't know about it yet.
Because as soon as I read that, my first thought was, hey, honey, do we know anyone that has hundreds of thousands of dollars? Do you want to start a money printer right now? Because I'll fire this up. But then I kind of checked myself and I went, no, man, that's not me. That's not what I do. But it is an interesting point to consider. And the fact that I was able to identify that immediately just by looking at it means that I do have a bit of a higher level understanding of the blockchain. Well, Rogan X, where does that come from? How do you know the things that you know? Because it's not just ChainShot, okay? They do an amazing job, but they have not given me the underpinning that I had. So in order to kind of understand any of this, it doesn't require technology in your background. So, in terms of like a professional level of use of technology, okay? Because I've been a hobbyist my whole life, effectively, until 2020. And then suddenly I started to make Ether. I had income. I've got projects coming in. I've got people asking me to consult. I've gotten hired. I've gotten headhunted. And these are not things that I take for granted. It's a lot of work to maintain this pace. But for anyone who's kind of concerned about their level of involvement, the great thing about blockchains in the Web3 space is that you get to decide your level of involvement pretty much. Like, no one's holding a gun to your head to say that you have to send that transaction when gas is at 300. Go ahead. Like, no, and conversely, now that we're starting to see more adoption of proof of stake blockchains outside of Ethereum and Near, and oh my God, I'm going to have to go back and you guys can just cut out all the shit that I've said about Ethereum. Okay. I'll talk about Near. I'm sorry. I just clued into that. You should have cut me up earlier, man. Ow. Brutal. Okay. Sorry. I don't want to waste time because it's already like 2:40. Reel it in, Rogan. Fucking ask me a great question.
Let's actually talk a little bit about art. I remember during previous conversation you mentioned that there was a big debate around quality versus trash art, or just, I'll be curious, like where's it coming from?
Again, not a sociologist, not a historian, no credentials to speak on this topic whatsoever, but I will give you my fully uninformed opinion, is that it comes down to people don't like to see value in something that they personally feel does not have value. And so if someone comes to me and says, hey, that banana peel on the ground over there is worth $500, I don't believe them, because in my world, in my worldview, no one pays $500 for a banana peel on the ground. But if you took a picture of it and you turned it into an NFT and someone bought it for half an ether, you've already made more than that $500. Not to mention the fact that on the platforms you're likely to mint on, you can get 10% future royalties. So that banana peel has now become somewhat of a cultural institution. There's a great way to, make fun of NFTs and all of this. And it's pretty much just saying like, yeah, take a picture of anything. You can turn it into art. Some people don't like that. They don't like the fact that it's not exclusive. And again, I don't speak for anybody. This is entirely just my opinion, but it's almost like it's a misunderstanding, I think, fundamentally. And if people took the time to really look at what's going on in the art world and in their own heads right now, it's not about trash art versus quality art. It's not about 3D versus 2D. It's not about, hand sketches from celebrities versus, people who actually come in and put time and effort, love, passion, blood, sweat, and tears into the thing. We've flipped a switch at some point in the last while. And, well, no, it's not even flipping a switch. I guess the better metaphor is just Pandora's box. Like, it got opened real good. And the things that have come out are never going back in. And one of those things is the fact that we can now express ourselves creatively without interruption, without having to explain ourselves, without having to present anything other than a hashtag NFT community and say, hey guys, look, I'm here. Buy my stuff. I want to contribute. But on the actual technical side of things, like for myself, getting interested in the technical side of art and how it relates to the blockchain has been more fulfilling to me than having debates about what is and isn't art.
How would you describe art community that's been formed in Web3 space?
It's still growing. We don't know when it'll stop. I think there are some things in it that are a little toxic, perhaps. It's really unfortunate that at any point a community has to defend itself against attacks from within. I think that's like the worst thing, because you're arguing with your brothers and sisters. You're bickering for the wrong reasons. There's no reason to be at each other's throats over this. Like, I can have a different opinion about art than someone else and allow them to believe differently than I do. It's fine. I think that's an uncommon trait in this world.
How do you split your time now with working in Figment, but also being involved in many like art projects and virtual worlds?
I have a lot on my plate right now. It's true. I'm dealing with it as an adult appropriately by communicating, by being somewhat clear with people on my timelines and expectations and what I can and can't do. It is a balance for sure. I think most of the time, because I will be honest with you, I was not looking for work. I was headhunted. I was offered an opportunity that was too good to pass up. And it fits perfectly with what I'm doing, what I've been doing with technology. And I am also supported by that to then focus more on art in my personal time without feeling that I'm under pressure to produce or sell. So I feel like the quality of my art is only going to go up. I mean, it always is, right? The more you do something, the more you work at it. But I don't like, I could easily kick out a photo moshed anything. And I do a lot of glitch, and there's kind of a reason for that. It's not that it's, easier or less effort. I do put a lot of effort in the pieces that I produce and, show on the blockchain. But it's kind of irrelevant because someone else can look at what I do and go, yeah, that's low effort garbage. It doesn't meet their personal criteria of, what defines fine art and versus anything else. And again, I have no education on it. I know there are people in this space with immense backgrounds in art history, education, supporting the arts, being philanthropists. And I am just a tiny tadpole in a very big pond, but I'm getting bigger because I'm taking the time to put the energy and the effort into it. And as I grow, I'm trying to uplift everything around me. Instead of just making it about me getting bigger, I want my community to get bigger. And art and technology allow me to do that. If I find creative ways to fuse them in my personal life or my work life, it only benefits me and the people around me. And I feel like that is fundamentally the basis upon which Web3 and people moving into blockchain technology driven fields are going to be interacting. Like, there's got to be a cohesive community of developers. There has to be support. There has to be a room that you can walk into. And yeah, at first you're going to feel like you don't fit in and that you're alone and that you don't know anyone. And that's scary. But then someone from across the room sees you and they go, aha, someone new. Hey, come on in. And they share with you a positive experience that changes your life. So I had that in the form of taking the Chain Shop Bootcamp. So like, yeah, I had to go out and register and pay the money and go through the bootcamp. But during that, I was supported in my learning to such a degree that I was able to absorb like a lot of Solidity and JavaScript that I hadn't really used before to then form a basis for learning Rust and tackling Near and being able to understand, like, smart contracts can be written in many different languages, but what is the underlying purpose? What are we doing with this? So, and I know I haven't really touched on smart contracts or like the actual deeper part of the tech at all. And it's because I don't really feel qualified to talk about it. Because there are people out there that have the background that can say the right words and know that they are getting the point across well. And I just don't want to make a fool of myself and say a bunch of things that aren't really technically correct or are gut feelings. So, yeah, like I use the Hive blockchain, but I love Near. Like it's got the community. And I'm not saying that to disparage Hive and say that they don't have a community, because that is absolutely false. They do. It's awesome. I love everyone there. Please don't kill me. But Near to me just feels more, I don't know. It's not too professional. It's not professional enough. It straddles the fine line between being accessible to creative people, but also to developers and people from a more technical side. And where I really found the value of this was very early on this year when I joined Paras and I was able to make art there and then, do well with it enough to feel like I have some skin in the game. I'm invested in the success of Near, the community, and the blockchain. So I tell pretty much everyone that'll listen to me, and I try and do it in smaller doses now because, me, I like to talk. But it's really trying to get the word out and say, look, here's this thing that I really strongly suggest that if you're serious about continuing to use the internet, that you learn about. And here's a good way to do it and to step into it. Because I think Ethereum is a way steeper learning curve, to be honest. It's okay that I got in that way, but it is totally possible for people to come in from a different blockchain, from a different perspective. You might start on Tezos, or you might come to Near first, or you might go to Polkadot first, or you might find Avalanche because there's a whole, Twitter campaign going on. And that's another thing. Like, I feel like Near does have a good social media presence. There's been a very cohesive drive by everyone involved to push the platform. And like, I'm just a nobody, kind of, but I'm starting to feel like I'm taking more of a role and helping more people, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And so I feel supported in doing that because there is a community. Sorry if that's a rehash of what I've said before, but it's
No, that's super cool. Maybe we can also discuss a little bit more about different things that shaped your life. So maybe some books or mentors.
so as a young man, as a boy, I read a library or two worth of science fiction. I've always been a space cadet. I've always been dreaming of getting off this rock, watching all the movies with, aliens and spacefaring and all that swashbuckling, sci-fi stuff that people love so much. I grew up on it. My biggest influences in terms of my access to technology, in terms of authors, my top five: Jack L. Chalker, David Brin, Ben Bova, Spider Robinson, and it's a tie, but Greg Bear. These are some of the classic masters of sci-fi. And you'll notice I didn't put Isaac Asimov on that list. That's not a personal slight. I love the guy's work. Amazing, incredible body work. He's just not my top five. Sorry. Can't do it. But honorable mention. As far as like actual like approach to life, being a student of life, learning things experientially, I would say George Carlin. Definitely the body of work of the illustrious individual known as Johnny Depp. Like, what is it? That's more on the art side, not so much the tech side. And then, like, musically, I am diverse. I listen to all kinds of music, electronic and otherwise. I'm a drummer, and I haven't really been performing or doing anything musically related because we're all stuck at home right now, but someday. I'm a really big fan of heavy metal. These are Titanium. There's probably about a Library of Congress worth of movies that I've watched, and I have something of a photographic memory, so I can quote random movies at you. I try not to much these days, but it used to be something that I was really into. But I think cinema as a whole, not just like one genre, but just the fact that you can watch people do incredible things on a screen, that has influenced me. But I'm a very private person, and I actually don't really like being on camera. But that's going away because I'm doing it more frequently now. But influence in terms of learning. Yeah, my teachers in school were pretty amazing individuals for putting up with me, to be honest. But I'd say that life itself, all of the people I've met, all of the things that I've done, taken as a whole, that's my teacher. I'm very introspective. I draw upon past experience to inform the things that I do, but it's not always my motivation. But I would strongly recommend not just reading for learning or fun, but to try and actually understand where you fit in the world. Because when you look at it, the history of writing, passing information, communicating with other people, if we can learn to make fundamentally strong and sound points as written, then it's easier to translate into speech. And honestly, when we're teaching children to read and write and learn to speak, a lot of it is visual. And I'm a fan of the visual, but I think you have to pay attention to all your senses to really give yourself a full experience. Now, that sounds incredibly ableist of me, and I do not mean it in that way at all. Like, I realize there are people out there that don't have full faculties and senses, and there's disabilities. I honestly wish that wasn't a thing, and that everyone had the full package, the full sensory package, and the ability to be agile. But life, unfortunately, is so diverse that we have both the good and the bad.
For anyone like creators coming into the space, what would be your recommendation if somebody is just slowly getting curious about crypto, doesn't know exactly where to get started? What kinds of things would you say to them?
I would say be gentle with yourself. Don't rush it. This stuff isn't going anywhere. And I know that there's a lot of fear of missing out, but you're not. You're not going to miss out. If you get into it next week, You'll be just fine. Yeah, certain cryptocurrencies might be up or down, but that's going to happen anyway. So get in when you get in. Take it seriously. Pay attention to what is being said, but don't fall into the trap of just believing what you see. Question everything. Understand that people have come before you. You're not the first. And that when you invariably think that you are, it's best to just check yourself and take a look around. It will save you some trouble. But that being said, don't be afraid to scrape a knee. Get your hands dirty. Take apart what you see, because you want to understand it on more than a surface level. If you really want to benefit from all of this, the technology stack that forms what we call Web3, it is immense, and it is a lot to take on. So don't try and learn it all in a short amount of time. Take it in chunks. For myself, I've taken the approach of Ethereum to Near to Avalanche to Polkadot to Tezos. And I'm just going to keep crawling until I know them all. My goal is to be fluency. That's my goal. And that is what I would express to people coming in, is attempt to become fluent. You're learning a language. You're learning how to speak in the metaverse. You're learning how to communicate with people, but you're also allowed to and free to make your own form of communication. If you want to make a distributed application that has a particular set of values, do it. No one's stopping you. It's permissionless. We couldn't stop you if we wanted to. Now, that being said, if it's some not nice stuff that you're planning on bringing here, I will warn you, the people who are here are serious about keeping it safe. And I'm not trying to make myself out to be an internet tough guy, but do not mess with the blockchain. Don't come in here expecting to get rich quick. You might get lucky, but that is not the norm. There is a lot of time that you will have to spend eating your shoe leather if you come in and just act like you know it all. So don't. Listen to the people who do know and learn from them, because they all freely share their knowledge, pretty much. To that point, like I'm really trying to keep my employer out of this, because this is a personal interview, but with Figment Learn, the platform that I'm involved in, our goal is to give people the tools to make sure that they understand and can use all of these blockchains, and that they can pick and choose, like, okay, I want to use Near. I need to spin up something for Tezos now, and have very easy, fluid access to a galaxy of blockchains that will empower them to make amazing things happen, especially as over the next few years, we see more and more bridges between blockchains and more interlinking, interoperability. It's coming, and the people who are here to learn about this so that they can build those public goods, we want more people like that, obviously. We don't want the get-rich-quick schemers. And when I say we, I just say that because I'm actually involved in the Web3 blockchain space professionally now. So that's kind of cool, because I've managed to go from a down-on-his-luck cardboard pusher to a guy who is able to empower other people and use my privilege and my access to give them opportunities and make sure that they're even aware of them to begin with. That's another thing. People coming into this, shout it out. Do not keep it to yourself. Don't be quiet about it. If you find it fun, you're passionate about it, share. Tell people in your life, but don't be nasty about it. Don't say, oh, you don't get it, you're dumb. Bring people in with compassion. Show them the way by showing them something cool about it. Not everyone's going to agree that NFTs are cool, or that blockchains are cool, or that this is a good idea, but that's okay. We don't have to. I believe over time, in the near future, the non-believers are basically just going to be swept aside by the massive wave of the people getting it right, because we've taken the time to understand and then do it. It's a bit of a planning and execution thing. I came into this completely shambolically and without a plan, and I've somehow managed to succeed. So if you can do that, or if I can do that, theoretically, so can you. I wouldn't recommend my method to anyone else at all. I'm trying to impress that you should definitely take it seriously and be proactive about your learning. But that's what I would say to them, largely.
Cool. And maybe to end this, I was wondering, what's a good URL for people to learn more about yourself and your art and other things you do?
See, I don't really do the self promo thing, so I would have to answer that with right now. The best way is to go to my CryptoVoxels gallery at roganx.art. I'm working on it. There's a lot of things. It hasn't really been a huge priority until recently. I guess there was a point where I was going to let go of it. And it was on the market for a month and I didn't have a single offer. And then I took it off the market and within 2 days I had offers on it. Funny how that works. But no, I'm dug in now. I'm not going anywhere. I'm over on Proton. So if you know anything about CryptoVoxels, just pop over to Proton and take a look. But I would say that there's a ton of other stuff in CryptoVoxels that's way cooler than my gallery. So don't really come to my gallery. It's boring. Just go other places. Check out the real cool stuff. But if you're interested in my art, I do have some of it for display. My plan for this year is to do kind of like a gallery, like a targeted themed gallery showing, kind of every couple of months. I don't know, because it takes a lot of planning, and I want to involve artists that are active on Near, so using Paras and Mintbase, and because I know that not everyone can afford a space in CryptoVoxels, I'm trying to give access to others. But I will preface that with, if you try to hit me up or jam me up over like, oh, you said this, or I want to display art here and now you're not helping me. Why are you helping these other people? I don't play favorites, but I do have an aesthetic, and that's kind of more what I'm going for. So for anyone that can interface with that, by all means, hit me up, ask. Do not try and get me to display an NFT collectible project. I'm largely not interested in collectibles in my gallery. It's more about the art. But that said, I do have a few collectibles myself, and they're fun. They're fun to play with. Like gaming and blockchains is a whole other topic. I used to be a gamer. I've set it aside to dedicate my time to blockchains, but yeah, I used to spend a lot of time playing games. So it's a conversion of priority.
Well, thank you for coming today. That was like really awesome all around.